All right, so we're going to be in the semi-supine position for the first few minutes or so, just in case anybody else turns up last minute. Give them a chance to come in. So I'm just going to ask you to tune into the area in the middle of the body, which is the pelvis. I invite you into that area specifically to start with the feet on the floor. As I can't see you, Sue, I imagine you're doing this. So you want your feet on the floor and the knees up. And bring your attention into the pelvic area. And I would just like you to very gently, very easily, just following the range of motion in this position without lifting the pelvis off of the floor, roll the pelvis forwards and backwards. So you're using the action of the pelvis in relation to the spine and the hip, the thighs. Okay, so the whole time you should just be able to roll on the line across the back of the coccyx without lifting the pelvis off the ground. Yeah. So these movements, we call them anteversion, retroversion, if you want to be technical about it. But when we talk about rolling backwards and forwards, it's fairly obvious what we mean. So just exploring the extent to which you can do that movement without feeling any impingement or any restriction anywhere at all. And just sort of be relationally aware. So relationally aware in the sense of when you move your pelvis that way, what does the spine do? And when you move your pelvis that way, what happens to the top of the thigh bones as they come into the hip? So just try and get an image of that in your mind, what's going on. If you might not be able to kind of get down to great detail, but just get an image of it in your mind as to how the spine's responding to that movement and the thigh bones responding to that movement as well. So both a felt sense and as best as you can, just try and get an image of what's going on there. Yeah. As you carry on doing that, so now bring your awareness into the breath as well. For the moment, just soft breath, breathing through the nose. Get a sense as well now of the muscles that you use to make that movement happen. So again, get a felt sense of where the mild contractions are, because they're not going to be very strong contractions. A sense of it, and try and visualize, well, what's actually going on to perform that movement. So the back and the front of the body are involved, but just try to feel precisely where the contractions happen for that movement to happen, those two movements to happen. And just stay with that for another, we'll just do this for another minute at the most. And as you're focusing on the area of the pelvis, make that your main focus in terms of what's going on there, but also now broaden out your awareness to the periphery of the body, to the hands and the feet, through the legs and the arms, through the trunk of the body, but keeping the main focus on that rolling action of the pelvis again, including the head and neck.
Because you're going to be using that action quite a lot tonight, as we always do in yoga postures anyway. You could say that most postures specifically orientate themselves around those two movements of the pelvis. Yeah. Retroversion, anteversion of the pelvis is the main key movement area. It's where we initiate from. In terms of all our movements, practically, except for when we're doing shoulder work. Okay. So now I'd like you just to come to a still point for a moment. You can leave the rocking and rolling backwards and forwards. And I would like you to bring your attention into your right leg and bring your right leg to the vertical. Take the hands behind the back of the knee, let's say, behind the back of the knee. And just leave, so keep your hands a bit closer towards the hamstrings rather than the back of the knee. So they're just off the back of the knee, okay? And all you're going to do here is let the heel drop down towards the back of the thigh or the buttock, and then lift the foot up towards the vertical, breathing in. So breathe in, extend, exhale, fold. So you notice the pelvis is completely still. We're not using the pelvis for this movement. But you notice that there's a little bit of stabilization going on in the abdominal muscles. Okay, so the focus is on the leg, but other parts of the body are intelligently engaging to stabilize. Yeah? So you've got movement, stabilization. Okay, next time you bring that leg to the vertical, I would like you to keep it to the vertical, maybe even working a bit more to extend the leg through the foot, so let the energy move down the leg towards the foot. Now you might slide your hands, depends how long your arms are, you might slide your hands a bit further down towards the top of the calf, without lifting the shoulders and without distorting the neck. Okay. Bring your left leg to the horizontal plane on the floor. Take an in-breath, and on the out-breath, we're going to lift the head, engage the abdominal muscles, and bring the head towards the knee, knee towards the head. One smooth movement, lifting and engaging. And holding there, elbows wide, looking towards the imagined horizon. So you're looking forwards, outwards. And you're really strong in the horizontal leg. So the leg is engaging, projecting through the heel. And release down. As you release down, let the upper foot come down to the floor, back to the bent position. And lift up your opposite foot and take your hands behind the back of the thigh again. Okay, same action here. So on the in-breath, extending the left leg to the vertical. Falling down, inhale, bringing the leg back to the vertical. Okay, next time you bring the leg to the vertical, we're going to just exaggerate that movement a bit more. Extending through the foot, lengthening. If you imagine lengthening from the pelvis through both sides of the leg, inner and outer edge of the leg towards the ankle, and from the ankle you broaden the foot. Okay, bring your right leg to the horizontal, onto the floor, and then project out through that foot as well. So you've got equal action in both of the legs. Okay, watching your breath. On the next exhale, you're going to lift up, bringing the leg in towards the head, head towards the leg, looking to the horizon. So using the whole front of the body here, virtually, to perform this posture. Yeah. Elbows wide, so the chest is as open as it can be. Really get a sense of engaging through the muscles here. So you know, and contracting everything you need to contract. Quite consciously, quite deliberately. All right. And then we're going to release. Releasing the foot down to the floor. Come back again to the semi-supine position for a moment. Perhaps with the hands resting on the belly or the pelvis. Okay. And 5 times, I'd just like you to come back again to that simple movement of rocking the pelvis backwards and forwards. Just reconnect with that movement again. And then come back to a still point and place your hands down by the side of your body on the floor, palms down. Just checking your feet are not too far away from the buttocks. Okay, pressing down through the feet, grounding the 4 corners of the feet. Lift the pelvis clean away from the floor, all the way up to the sky. And then shift the arms onto the floor behind you, lifting the arms up and sweeping them back, with the palms of the hands facing to the sky. On the out breath, you're going to bring the spine down, pressing the spine into the floor bit by bit. Last thing that comes onto the floor is the pelvis. Okay? So we're involving that movement again of the pelvis on the lifting up. So you imagine the tailbone, pubic bone extending upwards. And on the exhale, rolling the pelvis back in towards the spine and the spine down onto the floor bit by bit. Once again, on the in-breath, lifting the pelvis first. Spine follows the pelvis all the way towards the tops of the shoulders. And we exhale. Once again. So making these movements very deliberate, okay, quite slow. I want to keep a sense of the breath being smooth in the posture work. So we might have to slow the breath down a little bit to be able to do this at the same rhythm as the movement. Exhaling, pressing the spine down. So you're engaging the muscles of the spine and the shoulders. Once again, next time we come up, we're going to hold the position. So we're just going to extend our time in the posture. You might want to walk your shoulder blades down and in a little bit so that you keep the space under the neck free, looking up to the sky. Pressing down through the feet, lifting the pelvis higher still. So get a sense of really engaging the thigh muscles to lift the pelvis. And on your next exhalation, rolling down from the top of the spine again, through the thoracic, towards the lumbar, and then grounding the pelvis and taking the hands down again onto the pelvis. So take a still point for a couple of breaths. Awareness in the breath and the whole body, but the focus again, we're going to take back again to the pelvis. And I'd like you to, once again, 5 more times, roll the pelvis backwards and forwards. 5 more times is backwards and forwards is once. Do that 5 times. Okay, I'd like you to just come to a still point for a moment.
And from there, we're going to come onto our feet. So we're changing tack now. To the front of the mat, looking forwards to the horizon. Standing with the weight dropping between the space between the ball of the foot and the and the front of the heel, toes spreading. And just letting the weight drop down, fully dropping down to the feet. So what I'm going to have you do is I'd like you to perform, let's say, 8 sun salutations, whichever type of sun salutation you want to do. Okay, so I'm not going to lead it, but I'll just lead the setup for a moment, and I'd like you to go through 8 meaning 8 sets. Okay, so 8 movements of sun salutation. But first of all, just dropping to the horizon with your gaze, looking forwards. Reconnect with that sense of lengthening through the inner and outer thighs towards the pelvis, pushing away from the floor. So your body is expressing the preparatory stage to sun salutation. You're engaging the muscles, the energy is there, connecting with the breath. Okay. So taking your attention to the area of the pelvis, we're going to use that area as the focus as we go through the sun salutations. So primarily focusing on those 2 movements of the pelvis, letting the awareness be present in the rest of the body as well. And so whenever you're ready now, so when you're ready, start your sun salutations. We're going to go 8 times.
And don't forget to alternate so that you're working both sides. Okay.
Okay, let's make the next one the last one, coming back to Tadasana. Taking the hands onto the hips with the index fingers, just touching the top part, the front of the pelvis. And you're going to keep that lifting up into the groins, lifting up, and the front of the pelvis lifting into the abdomen as you bend the knees and begin to squat down. Okay, so making an effort to get the pelvis lifting forwards and up and in. Okay. Straighten the legs, coming back to where we were. So you're noticing here we're diverting the pelvis. Once again, lifting the front of the pelvis in. Okay, bringing the arms up to the cactus position, drawing the shoulder blades back, keeping the spine long, looking out to the horizon, keeping the knees pressed together. And then from here, you're going to extend the arms to the sky, above the shoulders. Drawing the shoulders back, lifting the arms higher and backwards. Keep looking out to the horizon. And then bring the hands onto the hips. I'm going to straighten the legs up again. Back to where we were. Okay, take a pause. Once again, with the hands on the hips, bringing the hips inwards. Lifting the pelvis in. Okay, so all of the action turns into working the thighs, not into the lumbar spine here. And back to the cactus position again. Drawing the shoulder blades back to open the chest. Keep on just being aware that as you do that, you'll tend to do throwing the pelvis back. So you want to keep the pelvis lifting in and up. Lengthening the arms to the sky. From here, we're going to take the right elbow. We're going to twist towards the left side and hook the elbow over the left thigh, bringing the palms of the hands together. Okay. Lengthening the spine and bringing the thumbs to the heart center, turning your gaze to the side, keeping the elbows wide, grounding the feet, four corners of the feet. Okay, looking forwards and down. Come back round to the center and stand up straight again, straighten the legs. Let's take a pause for a moment. Okay, once again, so releasing down, keeping the front of the pelvis lifting up and in. Bringing the hands to the cactus position. Drawing the shoulders back, okay, extending the arms up to the sky. Over here, we're going to bring the left elbow over to the right knee. On the exhale, join the palms together. Give your attention in the feet. Pressing the palms together, bring the thumb towards the heart center. And remember to keep the elbows really broad, okay? Broadening through the front of the body. Cervical vertebra, the neck lengthening out of the spine. Looking to the side or downwards. Okay, looking to the floor, turning the trunk to the center, hands on the hips, stand up again for a moment. Now you'll take the feet just a little bit wider than your pelvis. On your next in-breath, reach the arms up to the sky. On the out-breath, take the hands onto your hips and fold forwards from the hips. So coccyx, tucking back, extending back and up. Lengthen the spine as much as you can. Release the knees if you need to allow that. Okay, so you bring in the belly and trunk as close as you can to the thighs, and emphasizing keeping the spine long. So if you need to bend the knees to achieve that, just bend the knees, that's fine. And then release the head down and take the hands underneath the fronts of the feet. So we plant the feet down into the palms of the hands. Okay. So probably going to need to bend our knees to be able to make that happen in most cases. Yeah. So once we're there, then we can release the head at the end of the neck. Elbows draw forward slightly in this version, rather than out to the side. Then we're going to see if we can lift the pelvis to lengthen the backs of the legs and see how much we can work with that without distorting the lumbar. So we're keeping the trunk long, emphasizing lifting the pelvis, lengthening the backs of the legs. We're going to breathe rhythmically, smoothly, but deeply in the pose. Okay. So despite the resistances that can arise in the body through this particular sort of posture work and breathing, I'm going to breathe into the resistance, try and keep it smooth, steady, even really important to use the breath in a way that's dynamic. It can help the pose to unfold more deeply, which is to connect more deeply with the posture as well. Okay, taking the hands out from under the feet, now bring the hands onto the ankles. Bend your knees and bring the head forwards, chest forwards, lengthening the spine. So at the same time as bending the knees, you're lowering the pelvis and bringing the chest forwards, head forwards, looking forwards, okay, to lengthen the spine. Shoulders drawing back. Bring the hands around to the outside edge of the legs. So the palms of the hands are sort of touching the outsides of the shins. Okay, and then from here, we're going to begin to extend the legs slowly, but we're not going to straighten the legs entirely. So as we do that, we lift the trunk up as well. Looking forwards, lifting the head up, coming up about 3/4 of the way. Okay, with the hands tracking along the sides of the legs. On the out breath, we're going to bend the knees and slide the hands down the outsides of the legs until the spine is parallel to the floor. And just there, you're just going to stop there. Once the spine's parallel to the floor, we come back up again on the next in breath. 3/4 of the way up, keeping the knees bent, spine long. Exhaling, sliding the hands again down the outsides of the thighs, down towards the ankles. Once the spine's parallel to the floor, pressing down through the feet, coming up again. A few more times. So your hands never lose contact with the outsides of the legs. Coming up about 3/4 of the way, the knees always stay slightly bent. And exhaling, we bend the knees and lower the trunk, keeping the spine long. Okay, we'll come up. This time we will straighten the legs. This time we will let the hands float out from the sides of the body. Look into the horizon. Just let the breath calm down a bit. Keep the attention in the whole body. Weight dropping down just in front of the heels. So not entirely onto the heels, not entirely onto the balls of the feet. Think of grounding the feet at the four corners. I'm going to change my position to go back to the front of the mat so I can do the next thing. So I guess you're at the front of your mats as well. I can't see your mats. So I'm going to go into something a bit more classical now. You're going to step back to the left foot, the length of one of your legs. Okay, fairly wide stance. Turning the trunk and the pelvis to the long edge of the mat. Float the arms up at the height of the shoulders. So the whole setup very smooth, very easy. Turning the back palm upwards, front palm stays down, looking forwards to the front, off the fingertips at the front, out to the horizon. Yeah, engaging the legs back and front, grounding the feet. So you just take a bit of time to extend out like a starfish, moving out from the center to the periphery. Then engage the periphery so the feet and the hands are alive in the pose. Okay, so don't leave the hands and the feet behind. So you're going to tip over towards the right side or the left side, which is where you're going actually. Okay, reaching out, I think it's the right side. Take the hand down and sweep the other arm up, one movement, coming into the entrance point of Trikonasana. Okay, keeping the spine long, rotate the head and look up or look out to the side. Just make sure that we're activating the pelvis in this lateral movement more than the spine. So the spine in a way in Trikonasana stays fairly neutral. That's the concept. It's the pelvis that does the work. Grounding the feet, engaging the periphery of the body, coming into the breath very fully. You can be aware of the dynamic aspect of the pose. We're going to extend the time just a little bit more in the posture than we have done the other one so far. Just gives us a chance to perhaps refine the posture a bit more in any way that seems useful. With your next inhalation, use the inhalation to pick up the body, keep the legs strong, turn the foot in, other foot out, reverse the palms, so the back palm goes up, other palm faces down, looking out to the opposite direction, off the tips of the fingers to the horizon. And then you extend out, okay. Think about the spine being neutral, the pelvis doing the work. Reach up, ground the feet. And then just look for breadth and length in setting up the pose and refining the pose. So resting the gaze on one point. Letting the mind settle in the posture through the breath, keeping the breath rhythmic and full. So to really get the deeper benefit of some of these poses, we have to extend our time in them. Okay, it depends what we're trying to do in our practice, but tonight I want to emphasize just a bit more time in the poses from now on. For now, we're going to come out, so breathing in, pull yourself up. Okay, looking to the front of your mat and stepping forwards. One smooth movement. Okay, we're going to practice Uddita Hasta Palangustasana. So see how you get on with this, Sue, because this is a fairly demanding balancing pose, but you can modify this in a number of ways. So first of all, it's good just to be aware of where you're putting the weight and getting a sense of balance on both feet. Okay, hands on the hips, grounding the feet. And lift up the right knee, so be very attentive and aware of the left leg. And you can take the hands around the front of the knee. So if you're wanting to practice a bit more further into this Usha Virabhadrasana, you might want to take the big toe with the right hand. Yeah, keeping the knee drawn into the midline of the body. If you're not going to do that, then just keep the hands around the front of the knee. And if you need to, use the wall to support yourself. So if the balance just isn't going to work like that. Look into the horizon, extending the foot forwards if that is what you're going to do. Yeah. Grounding the other leg, reaching up through the spine again. Really reaching out now, reaching out through the leg. And then you're going to bring the leg out to the side laterally. Whoops. Grounding and breathing. And we come back to the center. And release. And we find our weight on both feet again for a moment, noticing how that feels in the side we just worked. And we're going to pick up the other leg. Taking the knee, or the big toe. Keeping the opposite hand on the hip helps just to stop the hip even subtly pressing out to that side. You're going to press your hip back in. Keep the hip right on top of the thigh. Okay, really growing the spine. Axial extension, and then think about extending the leg out to space. Yeah. May or may not be able to straighten the leg. And keep the focus on axial extension. Okay, laterally. And back to the center. And release. Very good. And take your feet just a little bit wider than your pelvis again. On your in-breath, float the arms up, reaching to the sky, lengthening through the whole body. On the out-breath, bring the hands onto the hips, elbows wide, folding forwards on the out-breath. Release the knees if you want to. Keep the belly and the spine long, resting the trunk onto the fronts of the thighs. This time, taking the fingers inside the big toes. So it's another variation of Uttanasana. So before the elbows came forwards, for this version, the elbows come naturally out to the side. So we broaden the elbows and we broaden the back of the body as well. Okay. So keep the attention in the space in and around the shoulder blades. And you're going to abduct the shoulder blades, taking them wide out to the side. So you really open up the thoracic, at the same time keeping the spine long. Yeah, and then from there, if you wish, you can start to think about lifting the pelvis again and lengthening the legs. If that doesn't work, just keep the focus on lifting the pelvis and broadening the pelvis even. So broadening laterally through the pelvis to the outer hips. And releasing the head down at the end of the neck. Okay, bending the knees softly, extending the spine forwards, lifting the head forwards. Take the hands onto the hips and come back to standing.
All on the in-breath, back to the front of the mat. Look into the horizon, stepping your left foot back, staying with your body and your pelvis facing towards the short edge of the mat. Try and get those words out, some kind of comprehensible order. So a 3/4 length stance. Let's think about 3/4 length. Okay, so your setup wants to be in a tramline fashion. It could be a bit wider than your pelvis, or make sure that you're adjusted to the width of your pelvis. That's the main thing. You never want your feet inside the width of your pelvis. So that creates all sorts of complications for the hip joints. So grounding the feet, lifting from the feet through the legs, through the trunk, opening the spine, both axially and laterally, broadening the chest. So the whole expression here is one of energy, isn't it? Moving up through the pose from the ground. Float the arms forwards and up to the sky. So from there, we're going to bend the front knee, softly moving into a warrior. So a more intense version of this, there are always more intense versions of everything. You can bring the palms together and really work on extending the spine, but bringing the shoulders back. That's a really demanding version. Or you can keep the arms simply extending upwards, looking forwards to the horizon. Yeah. So one's a much more energetic expression of the pose, the other ones are more, as it were, kind of meditative, balanced approach. If it gets too tiring to have the arms up, just bring the arms down to cactus position or reverse goalpost. Palms turned in towards the sides of the ears, sides of the head. Step up on that. Okay, straighten the front knee. Let the arms come down to the side of the body for a moment. What we'll do from here is we'll turn around. So we're going to bring the front foot all the way in, other foot all the way out. And then make the micro adjustments you need to make again. Back foot turned in, front foot turned right forwards. Pelvis and trunk facing forwards. So just really clarify that expression of energy from the feet all the way through the body. Through axial extension. Float the arms forwards and up. Palms in. And then we're going to fold the knee, bend the front knee. Exhale. And you can just adjust the pose and refine it as you feel you need to. It's quite nice to work into the extension through the spine, as long as you don't feel in any way that you compromise your lumbar spine in doing that, okay? So if you've got enough activity and movement in the pelvis, you can incorporate the pelvis into that movement. Shouldn't feel like you're compressing the lumbar. So most of the work is lifting from the thoracic through the shoulders and back. All right. Arms down by the side, straighten the leg. Turning forwards and stepping forwards. Come into Tadasana. Feet slightly apart. Sorry, feet underneath the hips. Arms resting down by the side of the legs, looking forwards to the horizon. Chin dropping down slightly, gazing forwards softly. Just let your breath normalize a little bit there. Tune in with your experience. So we're going to practice Virabhadrasana 2. I was going to go up to 3, but I'm going to leave that. We'll just do 2 now. So we're going to step the left foot back again.
So you've got the pelvis and trunk now on a different plane. We're facing the long edge of the mat. Okay, so we completely shift the dynamic between 1 and 2. So there's a broadening through the front of the body, through the pelvis. I'm going to float the arms up so we don't start with leg bent. I'm practicing in a really precarious way tonight because I haven't got a yoga mat. So I'm on the floor, I'm sliding all over the place. It's like doing ice, it's like doing yoga in an ice rink, sort of. But it's good. In some ways, it's quite good to change the surface you work on sometimes because you have to, it makes you work in a completely different way, interestingly enough. So, I'm going to release the knee, looking to the horizon. We might want to turn the back palm upwards, we might not. Okay, so really take your attention through the periphery of the body, build up back to the center. Make sure we're not locking the breath anywhere. Okay, straightening that leg. We're going to keep the arms up and turn the feet. So just make a transition by turning the feet. And then we release the other side. Looking again to the opposite horizon. Just checking the front pelvis above the hip, not sticking out. Keep it in. Spine long. Building up the pose again from the periphery, from the hands and the feet, through the arms, legs, pelvis, through the trunk. Drawing the back arm back firmly. So you're really extending back through the back arm. As a counterbalance to leaning forwards. So you're charging up a bow, as if about to shoot an arrow. Yeah? All right, straighten the front leg. Be really careful. Now I come out of this one, I'm going to come out with a groin injury. Right? Stepping forwards. Okay. So from the front of our mat, just taking the feet a little bit wider still than the pelvis. Then bring the hands onto the hips and then lengthen the body and fold forwards again on the next out breath. Nice full exhalation as you fold forwards. This time we're going to bring the hands around to the back of the ankles, back of the heels. Yep, so doing another variation on the theme. Got the feet wider, you notice. So broadening the pelvis. Think about broadening the pelvis, reaching through and out from the sacrum, through the hip joints to the outer side of the hip joints. Lengthen the spine and folding. Elbows go slightly back here. So again, some emphasis on broadening the upper back. Yeah, think about broadening the shoulder blades to give space to the thoracic. Intercostals opening and lengthening the space between them. Releasing the head down. Okay. From there, I'd like you to place your hands fully down on the floor and walk your feet back into the, so that you come into the downward facing dog posture. So hands down, walking your feet back. Simple transition from one pose to the next. And we're going to bring our knees down onto the floor, one and then the other. And then draw the pelvis back towards the heels, coming into Balasana, or child pose. You can take any version of the child pose you want to take there, Sue.
a number of options. Bringing the hands and arms between the thighs is one. Taking them outside the thighs is another. Or keeping the head resting on the hands and forwards if you want. So letting the body come down into a still point for 15 breaths. We'll let go of the dynamics part of the practice. We'll do some gentle stuff to finish off now for the next 5 minutes or so before we come into a meditation practice session. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you now to lift the head and you're going to place the right arm onto the floor, just in front of you. So the right arm, the forearm is on the floor coming sort of across the mat. And you're going to place the left hand on the sacrum or the lumbar spine and just use that to support and lift the shoulder as you rotate to the left side. Okay, so you're doing a twist from a position that's not at all common. Just watch here that we don't crook the head up. So think about the spine being in line, the neck being in line with the spine, okay? Try to avoid lifting the head up. So keep the head down and then twist from there. So the whole spine incorporates the neck in the movement. We're trying to keep the spine, imagine the spine staying in between the tops of the thighs, not leaning out to one side. And we change to the other side, crossing the mat with the opposite arm, taking the opposite hand onto the sacrum and rotating the upper body, lifting the shoulder out. And then bring the arm down, coming onto all fours. We're going to do the same thing again, but from this position. In fact, we're going to do two things from this position. So left arm floats out to the side, and we rotate and bring the hand onto the sacrum. Again, just watching we don't bring the head into sort of a position that brings us into lateral flexion of the neck. Think of the neck staying in line with the spine, pressing away from the floor with the hand, grounding the feet and the shins and the knees, keeping the feet the same distance apart as the knees. Okay, and just work for 5 breaths to rotate, not from the lumbar, but from the thoracic spine, lifting the shoulder up, turning to the side. If you really feel that you can't but isolate the lumbar, you can't really involve the lumbar too much, and that's why it's a good movement, because it makes you work where you need to work. In terms of the thoracic, yeah. Okay, bring that hand down. Do the same thing on the other side. So extend the arm out to the side, rotate. So you're really conscious of your movements here in relation to the pelvis and the spine. So there's a slight, what we talk about as, what do we call this movement of the pelvis? It's not a twist. It's got the words gone out of my head. Doesn't matter. It's not that important for the pose. So keep the spine long. Looking out to the side. Shoulder lifting high. So we're neither lateral bending or are we throwing the pelvis, throwing the trunk to one side here. We're keeping everything in line between the knees, between the feet. Okay, and releasing back to the center. And sit into Virasana, or something like Virasana, with a block perhaps.
If you're doing pure virasana, you actually don't use a block at all. You just sit down on the floor between the feet. Okay. And 5 times, you're going to roll your pelvis one way, then back. Retroversion, anteversion, just as we did when we were lying down. 5 times one way, 5 times the other way. Very conscious of that movement. How it affects the spine, tops of the legs. And then bring the pelvis back to what seems to be like a balanced position. Interlocking the fingers at the roots of the hands. Extend the hands forwards. One smooth movement, drawing the hands up, dropping the pelvis down onto the floor. Grounding through the pelvis as much as you can. Thumbs turning up to the sky, elbows drawing in. But our shoulder blades are not rising up. We're going to try and resist the temptation to elevate the shoulder blades. Keeping the heart center quiet into the body. We separate the hands. You're going to twist to the right side, very simple seated twist. Bringing the hands down to where they want to come to. Or the fingertips. With the head sort of very, very soft at the top of the neck. Just letting the head sort of float round gently. Not forcing the neck in any way, just floating the head around towards the right side. And just focus on the sensations in the spine in this twisting movement. So be specifically aware of the sense of the spine. And again, particularly the thoracic spine. And then particularly aware of the breath as well. Okay, so breath, sensations of the spine. Neck soft, face soft. Tongue resting in the mouth. At the root of the tongue soft. The eyes in the head soft. Okay, and then to the other side, one smooth movement. It's really encouraging that sense of attention. The last bit of the practice on the spine and the breath. And back to the center, just taking a still point with a pause in Virasana. So I'm going to set us up for a bit of meditation now. And Sue, you can sit or you can lie down if you want to. Well, in fact, you can both do that if you want. Up to you. Yeah, a very simply guided practice for 15 minutes or so. Where we just consolidate practice, assimilate the practice. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll do a scan of the body and then finish off with a bit of mindfulness of the breath as we're lying down. So become aware of the head and the scalp and the skin, the surface of the body and the face. And let this awareness of the surface of the body move down the body. So the neck, the shoulders, just being aware of the sensations on the skin for the time being. Through the right arm to the wrist and the hand. Through the left arm to the wrist and the hand. The fingertips, the sensations in the hands. Through the sensations on the chest and the abdomen, clothes on the skin, etc. Any sense of movement, even experience we simply can't articulate in words. And the back of the body, so the upper back, to the mid back, to the low back, the pressure of the floor and your body against the floor. Sides of the body down to the pelvis. All around the pelvis, back, front, side, just the skin. The right leg, so the surface sensations at the top of the leg, back and front to the top of the leg, sides to the knee, from the knee down to the foot. And the other leg. And then come back to the head. I'd like you now to invite you to go a bit deeper into the body with your awareness, becoming aware of the flesh. So this is like the muscle, connective tissue, tendon, ligament area. And the organs when we get to the torso. So just the extent that you are able to, you get a sense of that area of the body. Around the face, muscles of the face, scalp, neck, sinking into the body. The right arm sinking into the body through the muscles, forearm, hand. And then the left arm, shoulder, down through the arm. Sensing, tuning into, becoming aware of, noticing how you are aware of the body, how that awareness changes, shifts, different perceptions of the body. And the chest and the abdominal region sinking into the flesh, in the body, the lungs, the chest, the heart, intestine, stomach, spleen, liver, kidneys. And the pelvis, becoming aware of the urogenital area, the buttocks, pelvic floor. Through the right leg, big muscles of the legs, tendons and connective tissues. Just being felt, just being known and experienced, however that happens. And the bottom part of the right leg, the calf, the shin, down to the foot. And the other leg in the same way. Down to the foot. Then we come back to the head again, and we go further still into the body. So we're going to go down to the level of the bone, becoming aware of the cranium and the face bones and the neck. So sinking into the body. It's hard, resistant layer. Gives you structure and form, movement. And then the collarbones, the arm bones to the hands and finger bones. The sternum and the spinal column and the ribs. And the pelvis, we've had a lot of focus on this evening. And the sacrum and the coccyx in between the pelvic bones. And then the legs, one after the other, going through the leg bones to the feet. So I'd like you now just to rest your attention in the body as a whole, as best as you can. Take your attention specifically to the breath. And even more specifically to the sensations that tell you the breath is there. So whatever those sensations are, whether they're smooth or not, whether they're more superficial or deep, relaxed or not, just keeping the mind as much as you can present to the breath. However it happens. And just keeping your attention very relaxed, both in the body, but mainly on the breath. And just continuing to practice like that for as long as you want, or finishing whenever you want.